Hey, friends, quick heads up for all the mental health pros out there. Ever thought about making more money without adding more client hours? Well, if so, I've got something really cool for you. I've whipped up a list of 50 smart ideas to boost your income, all tailored for therapists and counselors just like us. Think online courses, digital tools, or even your own wellness product. And guess what? It is totally free. So if you want in, just click the link in the show notes. It's super easy to sign up, and you'll be browsing through those ideas in no time, thinking about all the possibilities. So don't miss out. Click the link in the show notes now, grab that list, and let's shake things up in your practice and your bank account. All right, here's this week's episode. Welcome to the Therapy Show podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard. In each episode, I interview a seasoned and knowledgeable talk therapist from the counseling world to glean valuable insights, techniques, and tools that you can apply to your practice and your life. And if you're considering a career in the counseling field or just want to hear about what it's like to be a talk therapist, then this is the podcast for you. This week, I'm honored to have Stephanie Lincoln back on the podcast. Stephanie is a former Army captain, a trauma therapist, and the author of a new book, Born to be Brave, My 56-Hour Battle for My Life in the Olympic National Forest. She's joining me for a conversation that promises to be as enlightening as it is inspiring. In Born to be Brave, Stephanie shares her experience of survival against all odds in the vast wilderness of the Olympic National Forest. This episode dives into her incredible story of resilience, survival, and the profound journey of self-discovery that followed. Stephanie's tale is not just about surviving in the wilderness, it's a testament to the human spirit's capacity to overcome, adapt, and find strength in moments of extreme adversity. And beyond the gripping narrative of her survival, Stephanie opens up about the impact this experience has had on her and her life, both personally and professionally. As a trauma therapist, she brings a unique perspective to the conversation, discussing the psychological aspects of trauma, the importance of intuition, and how facing life's toughest challenges can lead to significant personal growth and healing. So, whether you're drawn to survival stories, or you're interested in the psychological resilience in the face of trauma, or looking for inspiration to face your own life's challenges, this episode is for you. Join us as we sit down with Stephanie Lincoln to discuss Born to be Brave, her journey of survival, and the lessons learned along the way. Prepared to be moved, inspired, and perhaps see your own challenges in a new light after hearing Stephanie's powerful story and insights. So, hey, friends, welcome back to another episode of The Therapy Show. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard, and this week's guest is no stranger to the podcast. Her name is Stephanie Lincoln, and I am thrilled to have you back. Welcome back, Stephanie. It's awesome to see you.
Thank you. So glad to be back. I love your podcast. I was just telling Lisa I listened to it on my very long commute into Seattle on the 2 days I have to go into work. So love it. I love what you're doing, Lisa. So glad to be here.
Thanks. Yeah. So we have to just give everybody a refresher. So you were on an episode, actually a pod course that qualifies for continuing education, all about nutrition and mental health. So we'll put a link in the show notes for that one. And then years ago, it was during COVID, you came on and we talked about self-care, I think, for the therapist as we deal with COVID. So I'll put a link in the show notes for that one as well. But Stephanie, you wrote a book, and it's
Yes.
incredible what you've written. And I have it here in front of the camera. If you guys are not watching on YouTube, you'll get to, of course, head over there. It's called Born to be Brave, Stephanie Lincoln, former Army captain, my 56-hour battle for my life in the Olympic National Forest. And I've started it, and I got to say, it is incredible. First of all, what you went through, and second of all, that you put it into a book. So can you take us back to the day that this happened for you and what was going on? Because you're an expert. Like, you were a retired Army captain. You were like soldier of your platoon or a command. I mean, you have skills, navigational
Yes.
skills. So like, and you are probably one of the most resilient women that I know. So take us back to what was going on that day and how this all happened.
Yeah, I think when you look back, you armchair, like expert at like later on, you could see what led up to the events and obviously I've done that. But at the time, certainly I was not
Yeah.
aware these things were going on. Yeah, I talk about kind of the before, the during, and the after for me. The really like the realizations that I've had since, looking back now, evaluating all the things that kind of went well, did not go well, some of the strengths that I had in place that helped me survive. Obviously, I wouldn't be sitting here today talking to you if I didn't have those things. And also the failures that led up to it happening in the first place, right? And that day, we actually traveled full time in an RV for almost 5 years. So that's another interesting aspect of my life. And I was doing virtual therapy. I just have my private practice, and I'm an avid hiker. I mean, I've hiked everywhere, all over the nation, just with our travels. And it kind of came down to a few things. Over reliance on technology. Uh-oh. Yeah, which we all struggle with, right? So I'm using a particular app, and just assuming it's right, right? We assume our technology is right, and sometimes it's not. And that bit me in the butt that day. A little overconfidence, because I am an expert hiker, and I am actually very athletic, right? I'm also certified personal trainer. And I noticed some things, after probably about 30 minutes that didn't feel right. And I didn't, listen to that voice, that spidey sense that we get, right? When you're just, things just aren't quite adding up. And it was that overconfidence. We think of confidence as a positive thing, right? We're always wanting to develop that within ourselves, and as therapists within our clients, right? And my confidence actually contributed to me getting lost that day, because I got like, oh, I got this. I've been on overgrown trails before. I've, gotten off track before. I got this. Like I'm good. I'll just power through, right? And I wasn't. It just overpowered that quiet whisper of something's not right. This doesn't feel right. And I just ignored it, right? Because of my confidence. Okay, well, if it's not right, oh well, I'll get through it, right? I can power through. I've been, kind of misdirected on trails before. I got this. I've recovered. So I think that in kind of a summary was the thing that kind of set me up for failure that day.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting that it was your confidence that got in the way, or more than anything, it wasn't,
Yeah,
it was,
overconfidence in
yeah,
technology, overconfidence in
yeah,
myself and my skills and my abilities.
yeah, yeah. So what finally happened when you realized that you were absolutely like, you were lost? Like what?
Am I allowed to curse?
Yeah. Yeah. We can always bleep it out if we have to, but go ahead. See what you got to say.
Oh,
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that I know all of us have had that moment, like that feeling, like that ice in your heart and your chest, and like somebody is stabbing you, just that overwhelming sense of terror. Most of us have experienced a moment like that in our lives. And yes, when I realized after a few attempts to recover that I was absolutely lost,
Yeah.
it was that moment. Like your legs get weak, you start, I actually did have a panic attack.
Sure.
I, kind of collapsed there, sat down and put my head between my knees and started to tear up. And I was having the panic attack, like breathing really hard and, really just shaking. And yeah, and had to spend a few moments getting myself recovered from that.
Right. Okay. And so once you came on the other side of that, what did you do? Like what was your thought process like? How did you make a decision that you were going to get through this? Like what was it like?
Yeah,
Hmm.
that was the easiest decision, actually.
Yeah.
That made everything for the next 3 days very easy, actually.
Yeah.
As physically arduous and mentally stressful as it was and traumatizing, that actually made it easy.
Okay.
Was that one decision point. After I recovered myself from my panic attack, in my mind, I did have that conversation with myself. Actually, a lot of this dialogue happened out loud, because at that point I started talking to myself out loud and
Yeah.
basically talked to myself out loud. All my thoughts came out of my mouth for the next 3 days, because it was just, it made me feel less alone and scared,
Yeah.
right?
Sure.
And so I said to myself, all right, well, this is easy
Hmm.
because I've got one mission. survive?
Yeah.
And that's the only question I had to ask myself for every decision I made out there. Will this help me survive? Yes or no? That's it. I mean, I really distilled life to a very simple pinpoint, right? That was
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And at that point, I mean, I think it's just, it is, thank God we have these wonderful advanced brains, right? Because you were able to compartmentalize that. Everything else just got shoved to the side. My world became very small and very simple.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no emotion. Like I didn't cry the whole time till the very end, which you'll read about in my book.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't emotional. I didn't get upset. I didn't get angry. I didn't get frustrated, scared, nothing. It was just, what do I need to do next? What are
Mm-hmm.
my options? Okay, here's my decision, execute.
Okay.
3 days of just that. It was
Yeah.
very, very simple.
Yeah.
It's amazing how the human mind works in that way.
So what decisions did you make that, I don't know, this is a weird, like that propelled you to be found, I guess? Like what were the things that you did that eventually you were found? Does that make sense? I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, my physical conditioning was a huge resource for me. I was already very athletic and fat adapted. So
Mhm.
for what people don't know what that means I have a long history of doing fasting training.
Mhm.
I've fasted up to 5 days.
Mhm.
And so for most people who haven't fasted basically since the day they were in the womb or
Right.
ever since they were created, this is problematic to go 3 days without food. And it would quickly lead to, some symptoms that actually would, probably affect the way you could mentally function
Mhm.
and physically function out there.
Right.
You would get hypoglycemic, you wouldn't be able to move, you wouldn't be able to make good decisions because you've got that kind of hypoglycemic brain fog. Some people, could get into medical trouble pretty quickly.
Mhm.
But I didn't have any of those factors in play because I was fat adapted. So that was one huge advantage for me that helped me survive. I guess the second is just that mental toughness. I mean, I'm a former adventure racer. I've done 300-mile races in the wilderness. Like I know hard.
Yeah.
I have a childhood trauma. I know hard, and I've always had that kind of personality. Like choose the hardest path, that's me. That's what I do. I worked in a prison for 5 years. That's hard, right?
Yeah.
So I think just that mental endurance, that mental toughness, where, most people tell me about when they learn what, happened to me. They're like, oh, I would just curl up in a ball and just cry and die. Like I just wouldn't be able to do anything. I'd just be so terrified of
Mhm.
every like single decision.
Yeah.
And I didn't get to that place mentally,
Mhm.
right? It's just like, okay, I believe in my abilities. I can do this, and all I need to do is survive this. And then my physically, the things that I had on me were key to my survival as well. I always, always, always travel with a pretty extensive hiking pack. I bring emergency supplies. I have an extensive medical kit. I always carry my water filtration system and a backup system for that in case that fails. I always bring all my headlamps and my chargers, and I have a solar charger, and I have emergency blankets and all sorts of stuff that really came in handy out there to help. I have a emergency fire starter kit that helped me start fires when I was out there. So lots of like layers of clothing, and I didn't have a full tent or a sleeping bag, because I hadn't planned on spending the night out there. I wish I would have had that. That would have been nice. But just the minimum stuff that I carry is much more extensive than most day hikers, and it helped me survive.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Oh, it's so good to know. Oh, it makes me wonder, it makes me rethink, what do I have in our pack when we just go for a day hike? Like, seriously, I mean, gosh, okay. I'm just blown away by your story. So eventually you are found. Who finds you?
Well, I won't give away the details
Sure.
because that's a
In the
fun little
book.
moment in my book. But I was recovered by the Rainier Search and Rescue Team.
Okay.
So where I went missing, I was in basically the very tip, northwest tip of Washington State. So
Okay.
that's where the Olympic National Park, most people know it, but more extensively, much bigger is the Olympic National Forest, which is where I was hiking. And that's in the tippy tip of Washington State. And Rainier is just south of Seattle. I can actually see her from my window right now.
Mm.
So their search and rescue team was the team that deployed out to the Olympic National Forest and found me. And that's an exciting story
Yeah, I
in my
can't.
book.
I got to be honest. I'm just like getting into chapter 2, so I can't wait to read the rest of the book. And I know I'll go through it really fast this weekend. It's a quick read. It's really
It is a
exciting.
quick read,
And
yeah.
I know I asked you prior to starting, like, was it hard to write about yourself? And you said no.
No, it wasn't. And I love that you recognize that, Lisa, because you know me so well.
Yeah,
I've known Lisa for God,
a
I
long time
mean,
now, almost 10
yeah,
years, longer than
definitely
that.
probably longer than
Yeah,
10
longer than
years.
that.
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
So let's just say 15 years.
Hmm.
So you know me really well. You know my personality. And that is one of the compliments I've gotten from about the book from people who know me well. They're like, I feel like I was just listening to you tell me the story. It was in your voice, it was in your personality. It never deviated. Like it just felt like you. My sister said, God, I felt like I just hung out with you all weekend, like, and
Hmm.
you were just telling me the story.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for that compliment.
Oh, yeah.
That's and I don't know. I guess just because I don't know any different, I'm not a writer. I'm not a trained writer. I've never taken any kind of courses or anything like this. It really was just my process of healing.
Hmm.
That's the whole reason why I started writing the book.
Hmm.
Was just I thought it might help me heal.
Yeah.
And it did.
Yeah.
But then it also became kind of a challenge to myself to put my story out there because I mean, not only is it an interesting thing to go through and maybe somebody would learn from it, but also just from the trauma's perspective of, what happens when a trauma therapist goes through
Yeah.
trauma, right?
Right. Yeah. That's what I was wondering too. Like, what's that like? Because here, I talk to you right now and you seem normal and happy. You're working, but I'm wondering, like, how traumatic was it and how did it affect you afterwards? And what was that process like? I just,
Yeah. Well, I immediately called my therapist. Like literally, like I think in the car on the way from being rescued.
yeah.
I think I just texted her and she said, okay, I'm going to give you a couple days to just breathe. And then, yes, we definitely need to talk. Immediately jumped into therapy, of
Mm.
course. Like that would be pretty hypocritical of me to not get into
Right.
therapy,
Right.
which is really silly. Like I mean, so many therapists are anti-therapy, which is crazy. Yeah. So I dove right into that. And, I had a lot of time to think out there anyway. And I had mentally kind of set a plan up for me for what I really wanted to work on within myself. And that is some things that I reveal in the book about some of the places that I was not happy with in my mental state and mental well being and had been complacent about, because I was just fine, right? I mean, when you get to a place of being just fine and very high functional, it almost seems like, okay, well, do I really want to wax the 1984 Chevy Citation, right? It's like, but you know what? I needed to,
Mm.
and when you're confronted with your own potential death, those things become pretty clear.
Mhm.
And so there were some very glaringly obvious issues to me out there, not in my normal life before this, that I really needed to work on. That if I came to the point of losing my life again, I would really want to have resolved. And so those are the things that I worked on in therapy. Not just the trauma. The trauma actually was easy. It was the other stuff
Right.
that
Right.
was the hardest. It was that was the deep-seated, rooted stuff that I had kind of, fixed to a point,
Sure.
but I needed to go the distance on, and I had avoided it. And so the trauma was fantastic. Like I processed it pretty fast And I still, but trauma is what it is. Like when I hear a helicopter now, I still have that initial kind of experience of just like, that shortness of breath, like, oh, but I know what it is, so it's like, oh, I know what this is. Okay, I'm good. I'm safe and
Yeah.
I can move on. I don't get stuck there. So I think to me, that's what trauma recovery looks like. It doesn't mean that it's absolutely gone, but
Right.
I just know what it is
Right.
and I know what those signals are. And I thank my brain for giving those signals because it's doing its job. And then I move on with my life because
Mhm.
I'm safe.
I want to share with you a fabulous offer from Therapy Notes. Have you ever felt swamped by endless paperwork and tangled schedules? Then step into a world of clarity with Therapy Notes. Hailed as the gold standard in electronic health records, Therapy Notes is your beacon in the dynamic realm of mental health care. With their round the clock 7-day live phone support, it's evident why they shine with a dazzling 4.9 out of 5 stars on trustpilot.com and Google. From effortless billing to streamlined scheduling, precise note taking, and state of the art telehealth, Therapy Notes is your all in one solution. And for the prescribers out there, they're ecstatic to introduce ePrescribe. And if you're switching lanes from another EHR, they've got your back. They will seamlessly migrate your demographic data at zero cost, ensuring you hit the ground running. So become part of the 100,000 plus mental health professionals community who've chosen Therapy Notes. And to embark on a 2-month complimentary journey, just tap the link in the show notes or use promo code Lisa at checkout at therapynotes.com. That's promo code Lisa, Lisa, at checkout at therapynotes.com. So dive into the Therapy Notes experience today and see why it's the talk of the town. Navigate with confidence and choose the best. Yeah, that's a nice that's an interesting lesson. And I mean, everybody has trauma. Not everybody's got trauma at on some level, and I think that's really wise what you just shared. It's like we've all got stuff. We've all got things that we've been through, and it's not that's not going to go away. But how we react to the triggers or the things that give us that like visceral reactive moment,
Mm-hmm.
you have to like, okay, it's not happening at the moment. It is all in the past, but my body's still reacting. My brain's still doing its job. I think that's a really great way of
Yeah.
putting it. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that.
No.
No.
We
Yeah.
we villainize it so
Mhm.
much, right? We say,
Yeah.
oh, we have to make that go away,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
like, but no, but that's what it's there to
Right.
do.
Right.
That's part of the animal brain's job is to
Yeah.
warn us of threats, right?
Right.
And that was a threat.
Yeah.
That's a reminder of a threat. Your animal brain doesn't wear a watch, doesn't
Right.
know
No.
that it's not happening now. It's just reminded, like,
Yeah.
hey, this was scary. Remember this? And it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, thank you for
Trying to
reminding
protect
me.
you and trying to protect you from,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah. Okay. Well, like I said, I can't wait to finish the book and get all the good stuff. And so you do talk about the things that you worked on with your
I
therapist after?
do.
Okay.
Yes. I go into pretty extensive yeah, just kind of weaving in and out of the things that I worked on and also that my husband and I worked on, right? Because that's kind of a unique thing about my book that I've never seen anywhere else is I included the perspectives of friends and family
Mhm.
in my book. So I actually had them and they were brave enough to contribute to my book and they wrote their own experience
Yeah. Yeah, that's
with
really neat
yeah, with
that they did
what
that.
I went through, right?
Yeah.
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 And so part of what I explore is my relationship post, trauma and because he was traumatized as well, right? His wife was missing for 3 days.
Mhm.
We I the great thing about this whole experience for me, I was the only one who knew I was alive,
Right.
right? So
Right.
at least I had that.
Yeah.
Nobody else had it,
Right.
right? And after a certain amount of time, there's an assumption that we're looking for a body,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So that is the headspace they were in. At least I knew I was alive. And so there's a different kind of trauma that my friends and family went through and my husband based on that and how we navigated that, myself and my husband Brad together,
Yeah.
both being traumatized in different ways
Right.
and navigating our relationship from that moment.
Yeah. That's interesting. How has this experience changed you as a therapist?
I think that it helped me, and I know this is going to sound strange, but I think I've even heard you say something similar to this on your podcast. I don't feel so bad. I think it helped me gain much more empathy
Mm,
for
mm,
people who have been traumatized. Now, I have been traumatized in other ways in the past,
mhm,
but those were that's a distant memory, right? Those were resolved, right? Worked on, gone. And now this is a fresh one,
mhm.
right? So I think it really helped me just be in the shoes of the people that I work with when I'm helping them with their trauma, and understand that everybody's process is different and we have to honor that. And just because my process worked for me in a certain way doesn't mean that, there's anything wrong with anybody else working through their own process.
Right.
And I can just walk alongside them instead of kind of dictating from a distance, like, come on, let's go, like, hurry it up, which sometimes you feel like that as a therapist, right? It's not at your pace. It has to be at their pace. So I feel like it really helped me be a much more internally, right? Obviously, I'm not saying this to my therapy clients. A much more patient
Mhm.
therapist, in my mind when I'm working
Yeah.
with especially people who've been through trauma.
I don't think I said that, honestly. But if you want to, I have said something similar. I know, not to make this about me, but I'm just like, did I say that? I don't think I said that, but I love how you put that because it makes sense. Definitely makes sense. And not that I want therapists to go out there and get lost in a national forest, but it's like it reminds me that we need to go out and live our own lives and have our own life experiences and just go out there and live a life because it makes us more rich as a therapist for our clients. I don't know. That's just kind of what I was thinking about. Maybe that's I can relate to it on that level, but also too maybe it's just maturity and professional development over the years because I don't think would have had that when I first started as a
Oh,
therapist.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's just a weird question of like, oh, aren't you automatically an empathetic person because
Mhm.
you're a therapist? And it's like, no, it's a spectrum,
Yeah.
right? And it could be different at any time and point on any day, right?
Yeah.
Just like anybody else, we all have the capacity
Mhm.
for profound empathy, but that doesn't mean we're in that headspace at that moment in time.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really, really good point. So you were sharing before we started the interview about your new job. Can we talk about that? Is that
Yeah, yeah.
okay? I wasn't sure because seems I don't know why I'm asking that question, but feels very secret, but I know it's not. So can you share a little bit about the work that you're doing now and how did you decide to go into this field from where you were before?
Yeah, well, I had been in private practice for a while, and I don't know, I guess I was just feeling a little not challenged, it just you kind of feel complacent and it feels a little bit mundane, and not that I don't enjoy private practice. I love working with my clients in private practice, but I don't know, just wanting a different kind of challenge. And I'd been kind of out of the I obviously, that's how I know Lisa is we worked together within the National Guard. And I was kind of looking for something like that because that is kind of one of my specialties is veterans and first responders. And really just wanted to get back into that realm of doing that, maybe something a little different instead of just private practice stuff. So I think it just really was kismet. It was the right time that I that's one other skill I've picked up since since my wonderful adventure in the woods is I am much more in tune with my own intuition.
Mm,
I really try very hard to listen very closely to my instincts. And even if they seem a little woo-woo, right? I just go with it because I have found every single time I do that, it leads me to some just profound step in my life. And that's what happened. Is just I was just listening to kind of my own feedback within myself of how, it's not that I was not doing well. I could pay the bills and enjoy my clients. I could have done that for, forever for the rest of my career, but I don't know, I just wasn't feeling very challenged.
Right.
And so I just listened to that instinct and started looking. I was like literally immediately I saw this job posting for FEMA. And it was a brand new position that they just created, which that happened when I got into the National Guard Psychological Health Program, by the way. Brand new position, just advertised. And I was like, holy shit, this sounds exactly like what I'm looking for. Working with disaster responders, like, being on these disaster sites, working with the people who are helping these disaster, survivors at these, kind of pretty horrific events
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways. So I was like, I'll just apply. I didn't really think that I would actually get a phone call, and yeah, they called me, and here I am, and I'm deploying next week to a disaster site.
Exciting. I love how you said that you've learned to listen to your intuition and to your gut. That was something that's come out of this experience. I think that's really interesting. That
Yeah.
is wild. Okay. Well, good for you for listening.
Yeah, it feels like a magical power. Like it really is. I feel like this is like the secret to just a wonderful life.
Mhm.
It's just like, yeah, I just have to trust my instincts. And even if it seems logically like it doesn't make sense, it always works out. And it's just I like I tapped into this crazy magical power that I had the whole time. Always thought like, oh, my logic is so much smarter than my intuition,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is probably a whole podcast episode. I love that topic. I think that's
Yeah.
really cool. And that's similar to what happened to me this past winter when I decided to get my hypnosis certification. It was like my gut was telling me this is something I had to do because I needed a new challenge. I needed something that was going to help people, I think, heal faster in the sense of get to the root of the issue faster. And
Mhm.
I just after being in this field for so long, I was like, this is what I need. I need to learn how to do this so I can help people get to their stuff faster, and help them heal faster. Now, I'm not saying that people heal like that in hypnosis because change happens at a different timeline for everybody, but it kind of speeds things up.
Mhm.
And I was like, my intuition was saying, do it, like go for it. This could really be something that you can tap into and help people with. So I
Mhm.
love that you're listening to your intuition. I think that's just fabulous. And I know you're going to do amazing in your on your deployment. You're going to help so many people and they're so lucky to have you.
Oh,
They
thank
are.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so we can get your book. I know we can get it on Amazon. So I'll put the link in the show notes. Are you going to go on tour and do a book signing? I think we need that to happen.
Yes, a lot of people have been demanding that. So, yeah, I'm looking at my schedule for the summer. Obviously, I'm constrained by my
Yeah.
FEMA duties and I could be called up at any moment. But yeah, I planned on, especially actually one of the ladies, this is a little fun little aside story. The RV park we were staying in, her name's Jennifer. She's such a sweet lady. She was so supportive of Brad when I was missing. She's a former forest service ranger, so she kind of knew the ropes and of course, it's like a tiniest Forks, Washington is the tiniest town. I swear, like maybe 1,000 people live
Really?
there. It's
Okay.
very tiny. And so she rallied everybody. She was hanging up my missing persons flyer and talking to everybody and getting information. So she was so helpful. And she let Brad stay there. She let us stay there for free after I was rescued for a while, so I could recover. And she offered to have my mom stay in one of the RVs that she had on the property there. She was just so helpful. She actually owns a lavender farm too here in Sequim,
Okay.
Washington, not too far from me in the Olympic Peninsula. And
Oh, wow.
they have a huge lavender festival. And she's like, we need to do a book tour. You need to come out during the lavender festival. And she's carrying my book. She's selling my book in her store, and she's so sweet. So
Oh,
that might be
yeah.
my first the kickoff of my book tours, the lavender festival in Sequim.
Definitely. Well, you let me know if you want to come south. We'll figure something out. We could get something going around here. I don't know. Maybe you could do something with the military. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
that's an
Actually,
idea.
I was invited out to, we have a very large joint training base,
Mhm.
mainly Army here. It's
Mhm.
JBLM. And they actually, the MP unit invited me out to speak on their kind of resiliency day. So
There you
I
go.
did, I had only planned on talking for about 45 minutes, but they were so engaged and they were asking so many questions. It was going so well that I
Yeah.
talked for an hour and a half. And it was just
Wow.
wonderful. Yeah. So I think I've really distilled it down, and if you read my book, you will get that, into it's not just about me, it's kind of about some things that you might want to think about for your own life,
Sure.
right? And
Definitely.
it's kind of some lessons learned and kind of passing those off
Yeah.
to my readers.
Well, I can't wait to finish it. I'm so excited. I wish I could have you sign it. So I'm going to save it. So when I see you, you can sign it.
Yes,
And
yes.
I'll put all the links in the show notes, you guys, to grab her book, Born to Be Brave, My 56-Hour Battle for My Life in the Olympic National Forest. It is so good to see you, and I'm so happy you're doing well and you're thriving. It's awesome. I love it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on your show, Lisa.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. Please note that the therapy show with Lisa Mustard is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and not a substitute for professional medical or mental health advice. Always consult with your therapist, doctor, or physician before implementing any suggestions from the show. The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard is edited and engineered by Chelsea Weaver. If you're looking to start a podcast or ready to take the editing off of your plate, be sure to visit chelseaweaverpodcasting.com. Well, that wraps up another episode of The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard. I know there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and I'm thankful you've chosen to listen to mine.
Be sure to visit lisamustard.com to access the show notes and discover more fantastic content.
And I'd be grateful if you subscribe to the show. Thank you.